the great New York City, no, upstate New York. What am I saying? It's just in general, the great Congresswoman, Claudia Tenney. All right, Claudia, welcome back to the show. Hey, Claudia, you've been to Mar-a-Lago? You think it's not worth more than $18 million? Come on, what do you think about this story?
It doesn't matter. I mean, this is you talked about it exactly right in your mile. This is evaluation. I mean, look, everybody goes out and gets an appraisal when they want to sell their house or their commercial property, and the appraisers somehow come out with a little higher value, to lure a seller. It's not illegal. It's just, it could be maybe puffing, but it's not some kind of intentional fraud. And then when you want to get your taxes lowered in a certiorari petition, which I've done many of those, sometimes the appraiser comes in a little lower. And again, it's not about a transaction where he's stealing money. And remember, look at another thing Letitia James said. She said, I want to make sure he has no business in New York. How many thousands of jobs, how many hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes and economic impact is the Trump organization in the state of New York and just about everywhere in the United States where they're Trump organizations? And why isn't Deutsche Bank or any of these, massively huge banks objecting to any of this? Because this is about getting inside a commercial transaction and trying to litigate it and trying to find anything that they can on Trump. This shows how pathetic it is. They're going for civil fraud. There isn't even a case of no one's going to jail for this. It's absurd. It's Letitia James. I've called for her to be disbarred. I've called for her to be removed from office because she is just totally involved in this malicious prosecution and abusive process, like all these other prosecutors from Merrick Garland on down. They're dirty cops.
That's it, dirty cops. She ran against Trump. That was her campaign. State Attorney General ran against Donald Trump. And these are all trumped up charges. And they were ready to do this during the campaign, even though Trump wasn't on the ballot in New York, obviously. So I don't know. I mean, I don't see. There's no victim. They're violating the Constitution. Claudia, one other point. I mean, this is about market value versus tax assessor value, or market appraisal versus the county tax assessor said that their $18 million number had nothing to do with the market. You shouldn't use it for lending purposes or financial valuation purposes. They've said that. And this judge went ahead and used it anyway. Anyway, all right, I want to beat a dead horse.
You're right.
Trump's numbers will go up another 10 points after this. I mean, it's crazy. They want to take all his business away, Claudia. It's not fair. Anyway, let us move on. We have bigger fish to fry, or do we? Matt Gaetz versus Kevin McCarthy. How's that for a fish? Here's Speaker McCarthy, I don't know, yesterday, I think it was live Sunday, Fox News show. Take a listen, Claudia.
Matt's probably planned this from the day I ran for Speaker, if you watched. He never voted for it. And the difficulty is, Matt was the individual who voted against our most conservative bill that would have secured the border. I want to secure the border. He wants to secure interviews. That's okay. Let him do that.
All right, you heard him, Claudia. Give us your take on this. Will Speaker McCarthy remain Speaker McCarthy? What is Matt Gaetz up to? What does the Republican conference think of all this?
Yeah, I think people are pretty fed up. Now, that being said, I came into Congress as a freshman with Matt Gaetz. He's a very smart, very capable guy. I do think this is a personality conflict between Kevin and Matt Gaetz, and I think it's unfortunate because we have really important things to do. And I liken what happened this weekend. Look, I want to vote for the most conservative, cost-cutting or expense-cutting measures that we can, especially focus on what we need to do is securing our border. We attached our great H.R. 2, which would do all the things we need to do on the border to the bill that Matt and others voted against, sadly. So we were in a bind. We had to face a government shutdown. And Larry, I know your audience will understand this. As a former lawyer and someone who was involved in bankruptcies and commercial law and you name it, banking law, tax law, I felt like we were looking at a Chapter 7. If we went into shutdown, that is like going into a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The only way out is an administrative way out, and the Democrats control that. Had we not done the bill that I didn't like voting for, but I voted for it because we need to stick together and we had to keep the government open so that we can preserve ourselves for another day. So we're in Chapter 11. We have to get these appropriations bills done. Unfortunately, some of the people on the right, and I'm on the right as well, are blocking the appropriators from getting these bills done. And then Matt goes after Kevin McCarthy and says the bills aren't done. Well, if you would let us get these bills done in regular order, we could get them to the floor to a vote, and then we could get this done. So it's really unfortunate that we're looking at a Chapter 11 right now. We have 45 days to fix this. No one wanted to vote for that bill, but we do. The worst case scenario would have been shutting the government down because, Larry, a Chapter 7, it's over. You have no control. It all goes into the hands of the bank and the administrator. In this case, we would have put it right in the hands of the Democrats in the House, the Senate Democrats, and Joe Biden. And that was not an option for any of us. And that's why Kevin kind of pulled a rabbit out of a hat, the speaker, and gave us that vote to save the day and forced the Senate into voting for something they didn't want. And we kept the government open, and we lived to fight another day.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a stunning ploy to get it done at the last minute, literally. But the thing I don't understand, Claudia, is what good does a motion to vacate the speaker's chair, what good is that now? I just don't understand that.
Absolutely. I mean, they control the White House, which, by the way, has all the most powerful arms of government, the FBI, the DOJ, the bureaucratic agencies that have a lot of police power that are working against us. And they can control the Senate by a narrow margin, but they control the Senate. We have a 4-seat majority. That's it. And we have got to start playing a finesse game. Yes, we want to dominate and control, but not when you have a 4-seat majority in a very slim part of the government. We have got to stand up and stick together. The Democrats would stick together, and they did. We need to stick together, and we have to stop thinking that if we don't get a Hail Mary pass, a touchdown, and we don't start getting 10% wins or making first downs, we are never going to win anything. And the Democrats play the long game. They'll take a 10% win and a 10% win and a 10% win. And before you know it, they've taken over. We have got to be willing to fight the long game.
Couple of quickies here. Actually, not so quick, but one. Jamal Bowman, okay? Jamal Bowen pulling the fire alarm. The House did. I guess everybody got up and walked out. This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. That's not true. It's in maybe the top 5 dumbest things I've seen in recent years. You know, with all his phony excuses, will he be admonished? Will he be punished? I don't know. Do we have some pictures of him pulling this alarm here? You're going to see this. We're showing the video. It's fantastic. You cannot mistake this fire alarm, pulling the fire alarm. You can't mistake that from a door opener, a normal door opener. I mean, you just can't. I'm sorry. So anyway, Claudia, what do you think? Should he be punished, or should the whole thing be dropped, or what?
No, he absolutely has to. This is a crime, actually, in D.C. And then you could actually make that argument, which I said on Twitter, is if the people who didn't even come to Washington were charged with, interfering with an official proceeding. Let me tell you what was happening while he was doing this on the floor. We were trying to get that bill passed, that continuing resolution to keep the government open, and the Democrats were stalling. They were sitting in the well of the chamber, which allows them to stall and vote one by one. They were stalling because they knew the Senate was contemplating going into a vote on the bill they had already passed. And so the timing was of the essence, and he was trying to slow things down. I don't know that for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised. It's just not coincidental that he was pulling the alarm, causing a delay right when the Democrats were trying to slow walk a vote in order for the Senate to act and to prevent us from getting this bill done so they could blame us for the shutdown and they could get the priorities they wanted in the Senate bill. Instead, we got this is just a colossal error on his part. It makes the Democrats look bad, and he has to be prosecuted for this. I mean, this is a misdemeanor under D.C. law. I mean, people are going to jail for this after the January 6th cases for what you could argue would be a similar case.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I hope he gets charged. I hope it goes through.
Me too.
Last one, Claudia, and you've been great. You're always great. You're a superstar. I want you to listen to our pal, the great Mark Levin, on Life, Liberty, Levin. This is last night. Take a listen to what he says about impeachment.
So a president is required to enforce especially a clear law, whether he or she likes it or not. They take an oath to uphold the Constitution, to uphold the law. And if they fail to do that, then they violated their oath and they have violated the Constitution. The impeachment clause kicks in. Has Joe Biden upheld federal immigration law? No. Has Joe Biden violated federal immigration law? Yes. Well, what about his effort, and more than effort, the fact of his circumventing a Supreme Court decision that says under separation of powers, Mr. Biden, as president, you don't have the authority to forgive student loans to the tune of maybe $1 trillion. His family had introductions to enemy states and some allies, to front corporations, from which his family benefited to the tune of anywhere from $30 million to $50 million. There's simply no question that it not only is worthy of an impeachment inquiry, in my view, it's worthy of an impeachment trial at this point.
All right. So, Claudia, Levin, who's a very smart guy, is saying impeachment potential regarding breaking of the immigration laws at the border and the student loans, when the Supreme Court said, no, you can't cancel the student loans. You don't have that executive authority. That's a legislative mandate. And then finally, the Biden stuff, where all of the phony LLCs might have taken in $30 to $50 million. You're involved in the oversight for the Ways and Means Committee. I'm concerned that, a battle over the speaker's chair and this and that will take away the whole impeachment inquiry intensity. But do you agree with Levin that these charges are there, they're real, and will this campaign continue on the Republicans' part?
Yes, I think we need to continue to do that. Now, remember, Afghanistan, I've assessed that is also an impeachable offense. The way that Biden pulled out of Afghanistan, left 13 of our service members to die, and then dealing with the border, violating our laws. Like, the primary role of the federal government is border security and national defense. He is abject in those issues. Now, when you get to what happened, uncovered thanks to the whistleblowers, we got this information out of the IRS. And you have obstruction of justice because his own DOJ, Department of Justice, dirty cop Merrick Garland, representatives like Leslie Wolf in Delaware have been trying to prevent this information from coming forward. That was part of the key issue. Also showing that there was influence peddling, there is bribery from the Biden administration, with the testimony come from Shulkin. The FBI informant Chuck Grassley put out corroborates a lot of this testimony. And you're looking, all these things are happening with Biden, and yet this is what we need to focus on: going after Biden and making sure we uphold justice, have a one system of justice, equal justice under the law for everyone, and also making sure that our constitutional laws are carried out through the presidency and his unique executive powers. Mark Levin is exactly right. And we should be doing this instead of focusing on personality conflicts that are going on the House side. We have a very slim majority. This is all we have to save this country and to come back to sanity and common sense, to get ourselves back to self-governance, away from the authoritarian regimes that are being forced on us by the Democrats. You and I come from an authoritarian state. I'm from New York State. So I feel the oppression of government every day, the authoritarianism. That is exactly the model that the Democrats are using on the national level, whether some of them realize it or not. The leadership does. We have got to focus on the issues. Impeachment has got to happen. And we've got to focus on really just upholding the credibility of the United States when dealing with what Joe Biden has done to undermine these institutions to enrich himself.
Yeah, the influence peddling, too. All right, Claudia Tenney, thank you very, very much. That was a nice chunk for this show. We appreciate it.